I want to say one more thing rather explosively. 3 people told me off record. 2 people who have this in a written communication from Charlie. One who is a Turning Point USA donor, and I would say very much one of the white knights in this. The very day before Charlie Kirk, he expressed that he thought he was going to be. He told these people, I think they're going to. Okay. He did not express that to me. So I am telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I am saying this because I hope that these people who I think are good will be inspired to come forward with that. Now, again, those conversations I had were off record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping that watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10, that, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he was going to tell us, who is they? Well, for once and for all, who is they?
A well-known political figure, once supported by dedicated followers, influential donors, and a significant national profile, was now the central subject of a major law enforcement response. News reports were disseminated rapidly, and allegations began to surface even more quickly. Tyler Robinson, a young individual with no previous record of violent behavior, suddenly found his name being repeated across all major news networks, social media platforms, and legal proceedings. He was formally accused of being involved in a highly significant incident in recent political history before he had any opportunity to present his perspective. However, as investigative authorities compiled the available evidence and the general public sought clarity, a more intricate dimension started to become apparent. Private communications and internal frustrations, along with various political pressures that were largely unseen by the public, began to emerge. Within those exchanges, significant questions started to arise. Could the circumstances of this incident be more complicated than the initial reports indicated? Was this event the isolated action of one individual, or was it the outcome of accumulating tensions that remained unaddressed until this point? This analysis delves into a case that resists simple explanations. It is a situation where concepts of responsibility, influence, and unspoken pressures converge, leaving one pivotal question persistently unanswered. What are the full circumstances regarding Tyler Robinson's involvement? In the immediate hours following the event, a wave of confusion and profound disbelief spread across the country. The incident transpired with considerable speed. There were multiple coordinated emergency calls, a swift convergence of law enforcement personnel at the location, and eyewitnesses who were visibly struggling to comprehend the events they had just observed. Almost instantly, news alerts illuminated devices all over the nation. Push notifications delivered the same urgent update. Charlie Kirk had been For a great many people, the news seemed difficult to process. Merely hours before, he had been addressing an audience, delivering one of his characteristic speeches with confidence, forcefulness, and unwavering conviction. Now the imagery of flashing police vehicle lights had replaced the stage. The previous sound of audience applause was entirely overcome by the noise of sirens. Major news networks acted with speed. Panel discussions quickly filled television broadcasts, and various analysts debated potential motivations even before any official law enforcement statements were provided. Across social media platforms, numerous theories began to proliferate. Hashtags related to the event became trending topics, and public opinion appeared to fracture almost immediately. Some commentators described the situation as a predictable result of escalating political divisions, while others strongly advocated for patience until more evidence was made available. Turning Point USA released its initial official communication within the same day, expressing profound dismay, encouraging national unity, and requesting public patience while official investigations continued. In numerous cities throughout the nation, supporters assembled for candlelight vigils, holding commemorative signs and sharing personal recollections of a man they viewed as a significant advocate for their beliefs. Simultaneously, investigative teams worked continuously through the night. A name was officially released to the public, Tyler Robinson. He was taken into custody and identified as the primary person of interest. Within a matter of hours, that name had gained global recognition. For many observers, a conclusion was reached instantly, viewing the event as inherently political. For others, it seemed premature to form any definitive judgment. As media coverage intensified, A dominant narrative began to take shape well before the complete set of facts was established. A recognized political figure was deceased. A young man was detained in handcuffs, and an entire nation was left with a greater number of questions than concrete answers. As the official inquiry continued to develop, an additional dimension of the situation started to surface. This aspect was not directly related to the physical location of the incident, but rather concerned the interplay of political influence, power dynamics, and external pressures. In the days following, the screenshots of private messages that were shared by commentator Candace Owens began to circulate widely online. These were not unverified leaks or ambiguous claims. They were authenticated by Kirk's own organization. Within those confidential communications, Charlie Kirk expressed significant frustration regarding major financial contributors. One specific message referred to the abrupt cancellation of a $2 million yearly donation after he declined to rescind an invitation for Tucker Carlson to appear at a Turning Point event. In another communication, he wrote statements that surprised even his long-term supporters, stating he could not accept being pressured in such a manner, which was influencing his stance on a major political cause. For many individuals within the political movement, these statements corroborated discussions that had previously been limited to private political circles. It appeared that tensions between notable conservative voices and powerful donor groups had escalated to a critical level. In his public appearances, Charlie Kirk consistently projected an image of strength and cohesion, addressing large audiences, directing public discourse, and mobilizing support. However, his private text messages revealed an individual navigating the complex intersection of ideological allegiance and personal principle. He was experiencing pressure to align with specific influential factions. Political analysts characterize this as a period of ideological division, where a previously cohesive movement was fragmenting over foreign policy positions, media personalities, and control over public messaging. The choice to maintain Tucker Carlson's invitation was not merely an operational decision. It evolved into a representation of resisting donor interference. These text messages do not establish who was responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk, nor do they directly involve any specific individual in the event. However, they redefine the atmosphere in which this incident occurred. They demonstrate that in the weeks preceding his Charlie was managing intense political instability substantial enough to distance him from certain segments of his own support base. It is within this highly charged environment that the investigation into his will be conducted, a context in which every communication and every public statement would be meticulously analyzed for deeper significance. As public emotions remained intense, law enforcement authorities concentrated their efforts on tangible evidence rather than media narratives. Investigators assembled a preliminary chronology that identified Tyler Robinson, a 23-year-old university student with no known history of violence, as the central figure. Surveillance video obtained from adjacent commercial establishments and municipal traffic cameras depicted an individual corresponding to Robinson's general description in the area surrounding the event venue shortly before the attack occurred. Investigators traced his movements by analyzing timestamps from traffic cameras, identifying a specific jacket and backpack that would subsequently become crucial evidentiary items. Digital forensic analysis played an essential role in the investigation. Authorities acquired records from several social media platforms where messages associated with Robinson were distributed. One particular post attracted widespread national attention. It was an ambiguous update allegedly sent from an account connected to him, stating he was present at a specific location. Although investigators have not publicly verified the full context of that communication, it became a fundamental component of the initial arrest warrant. Forensic teams also located a in proximity to the scene. Ballistics analysis confirmed a match between that specific and spent casings recovered from the site. DNA samples collected from the along with personal belongings left behind, were later connected to Robinson through official state databases. In formal court documents, prosecutors have detailed charges that include first-degree and the illegal possession of a Robinson's legal representatives submitted a plea of not guilty, and he has not provided any formal admission of guilt. The defense has contended that certain Pieces of evidence have been subject to misinterpretation, and they have requested complete disclosure of all forensic documentation from the prosecution. The atmosphere in the courtroom was serious and strictly procedural. There were no dramatic public outbursts or theatrical confessions, only structured legal arguments, detailed inventories of evidence, and chronological sequences being methodically assembled. The prosecution's case against Robinson is constructed upon a foundation of surveillance footage, digital activity records, and physical evidence, but its overall strength has not yet been thoroughly evaluated under cross-examination. While the formal judicial process advanced, investigators directed their attention toward Tyler Robinson's online presence, a digital realm that frequently reveals more than direct personal interactions ever can. Through the use of legal subpoenas and forensic data retrieval, authorities compiled many months of social media activity. Robinson's online posts depicted a young person who was actively involved in political discussions, often expressing strong viewpoints on subjects such as international relations, governmental authority, and media impact. Some of his online interactions were confrontational, mirroring rhetoric commonly encountered in certain online forums where ideological stances are intensified and seldom questioned. Prosecutors have asserted that Robinson regularly viewed and distributed content that was critical of specific political individuals and donor networks, including those associated with recent disputes involving Charlie Kirk's organization. Investigators have not presented this as conclusive evidence of motive, but rather as one component of a broader behavioral pattern, a glimpse into the informational ecosystem he actively participated in. Specialists in online behavior have observed that young individuals can become deeply absorbed in these digital spaces where personal frustration is validated and extreme perspectives become normalized. These online communities frequently prosper on polarization, transforming personal grievances into ideological battles. For the majority of participants, this engagement remains limited to intense debates conducted behind screens. However, law enforcement officials caution that for a small number, it can potentially develop into more serious outcomes. Robinson's defense team maintains that these online posts represent constitutionally protected speech and political opinion, not a deliberate plan for violent action. And from a legal standpoint, that presumption is fundamental. He retains the status of innocent until proven guilty within a court of law. The central question investigators are now confronting is whether his digital activity indicates motive, coincidence, or a more complex combination of factors. This scrutiny of Robinson's digital footprint is not intended to amplify his views. It is aimed at comprehending how online environments can mold individual perspectives, intensify societal divisions, and in rare instances, intersect with real-world violence. As the case became more deeply embedded in the public's awareness, two distinct but parallel narratives began to unfold. On one side were the law enforcement investigators and prosecutors who were focused on ballistic evidence, surveillance material, and formal courtroom filings. On the other side were millions of private citizens, journalists, and political commentators examining a completely different set of clues. These included the leaked private messages, the disputes with donors, and the ideological splits that surrounded Charlie Kirk during his final weeks. The leaked text messages did not assign legal culpability, they did not place any individual at the physical scene, and they did not demonstrate guilt. However, they initiated a national discussion concerning power, influence, and the substantial reassure experienced by prominent public figures when political alliances start to deteriorate. Inside the courtroom, the evidence is physical and concrete. It consists of forensic reports, digital records, and sworn statements. But outside of that formal setting, the public discourse centers on something less tangible. Whether this incident occurred within a political context that may have intensified tensions, generated adversaries, or revealed underlying vulnerabilities. These two distinct conversations must remain separate. One determines legal accountability through established judicial procedures, while the other examines the broader context, the evolving political environment in which this event took place. And within that space, which exists between established fact and public interpretation, the questions from the general population continue to grow more persistent. Two lives have been profoundly altered. One family is left to grieve for a son, a colleague, and a leader. Another life remains in a state of profound uncertainty, awaiting the decision of the justice system, which will determine his future. A political movement that was once unified now confronts difficult questions regarding loyalty, external influence, and the forces that operate outside of public view. Whether Tyler Robinson is ultimately found legally responsible or is acquitted will be decided in a courtroom through the presentation of evidence, witness testimony, and the application of the law. However, the more profound questions that this case has brought to the surface will not simply disappear once a verdict is delivered, because on occasion, the factors that lead to a tragedy extend beyond the immediate act itself. They include the unspoken pressures, the mounting strains, and the underlying fractures that develop long before a single. This legal case remains ongoing,